Welcome back to another episode of Intentional Loving. We are sorry for that break in transmission. We understand that we were having some technical difficulties and you couldn't hear us. There was no audio. But welcome again and thank you for staying. We are really excited about the opportunity to share with you these valuable insights into building stronger and healthier relationships. Welcome again. Thanks for staying.
All right, so sorry about that. I'm really hoping that we don't have these technical difficulties moving forward. Technology will do that to you.
It
You can,
does.
with the greatest of plans and expectations, technology has a way sometimes of bailing out on you
Yeah.
when you really need it to work.
You
But that's all
really
right. So we're glad that you stayed with us, those of you who stayed with us. And if you can maybe just share this video so that the others can join us,
Yes.
we would greatly appreciate that. All right. I don't know much about the whole issue of the watch party business, but if you can start a watch party, I don't know how that works, but you can start a watch party, get your friends on board,
Oh yeah,
so that
sounds
we
like a good idea.
can share this tonight. Again, we are talking about is it possible to have a happy marriage without sex? Is
I
it
don't
possible
know.
to have a happy
That
marriage without
sounds
sex?
difficult.
Yeah, can you have a sexless happy marriage? Wow. That's a serious one. That's what our conversation is about tonight. And I would really love for you again to share the video with a friend and tag someone so they can join this conversation. A recent poll done right here in Canada claims that 19% of Canadians said that they and their partners rarely, if ever at all,
Wow.
have sex. 19%.
Wow.
19% of the respondents in the poll says that they or their partners rarely, if ever at all, have sex. Now, while many couples would not lay claim to having a sexless marriage, a significant amount of couples do complain about not having
Enough sex.
enough sex in their marriage. A significant amount of people complain that they don't have enough sex in their relationship. And we have been asked some questions. You want to share some of those questions we have been asked in the future?
Absolutely. So one of the questions is, how much sex is too much? Or what's a reasonable number?
You know,
Once a month? Twice a week? Or maybe on special occasions?
okay.
I don't know.
Well, special occasions, that's like for birthday and Christmas, and maybe if you're lucky, Father's Day.
You're
Well,
funny.
yeah, well, that's quite interesting. Special occasions, once a month, maybe twice a week. Well, the thing is, our role here is not to tell you how much sex is too much or how little is too little. That's
Yeah.
for you and your spouse to
Yes,
decide.
absolutely.
You have to decide with your spouse whether it's going to be twice a day or twice a month or twice a year. That's for you to decide.
Yep.
I really don't believe that it is appropriate or proper for anyone. And I'm a pastor. I counsel with people, and I try my best not to instruct people about. I can advise, I can counsel, but I try my very best not to tell people about what the frequency should be,
Yeah.
or whether stuff like that. Those are things I believe that couples need to work out.
Yes, because they may have unique circumstances,
Right.
maybe job situation and different shifts or whatever. So definitely couples have to work that out individually,
Yes.
based on their own realities.
Yes. But what we want to do is that we want to look at the facts and the evidence that is before us, and hopefully we can learn a little more about the impact that sexlessness can have
On our minds.
on a healthy marriage. Because I can tell you, there are a number of things that can impact on having a healthy marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And the absence of sex or the infrequency of sex, I believe, can have an impact on your healthy relationship. So the first question we really want to answer tonight is this: how important is sex in the relationship? How important is sex in the relationship? And I'm going to just tell you what a few persons said in response to that question. One person said, I think that sex is important enough to engage in daily. My wife, however, does not think so.
Obviously not.
Obviously, it's a man that is responding there. So his wife doesn't feel that it should be done daily. Another person says, well, sex in a relationship is like indoor plumbing in a house. He says, I would not buy a house specifically because of the plumbing, but I sure would not buy a house that does not have plumbing. So in essence, what he is saying is sex is important.
Yeah.
And, without sex, therefore, it's not a happy marriage. Basically, that's what he is saying.
Yeah.
One person also said the frequency of sex, the type of sex, etc., does not matter. All right? That's what one person said. The frequency of sex, the type of sex does not matter. But finding a happy balance that makes both partners satisfied is what really matters in the relationship. That's what one person says. We want you to take a look at this video
and have regular sex
on,
is really important.
What
sex
these persons have to say
somehow
about
makes
the
all the
importance
other
of sex
things easier to deal with. Sex becomes
relationship.
much more important when it's not going well. It kind of becomes the destructive factor. In a good relationship, sex is about 25% of the substance, and in a bad relationship, it's about 90%.
A number one reason when they asked people why they got a divorce, sex was up there. Not having enough sex was up there. And then the rest of the people, I guess, weren't married because they're asexual and they don't like sex. I don't know.
Personality, shared values, all those other things are way more important in a relationship where sex is just working fine. This physical component of attractiveness and sexual engagement is huge. It's hugely important. It might sound superficial, but I don't think you can do without it. On the other hand, you have to have somebody whose personality, jibes with your own in some ways, complements your own, someone who you genuinely like and respect. I don't think you can do without.
But 70%, not 70, a lot of people were like, yo, I need sex. That's a big reason that we got divorced, and then I took my anger out and everything else, but it was all about the sex. Is sex important for a relationship? The short answer to that is no. It's not important for a relationship. Again, it depends on the two people that are in a relationship. You don't need sex for a healthy relationship. You don't. Some people wait till marriage to have sex and they're in a relationship and that's working somehow. Some people just aren't into sex. It happens. Urban legend says that it is a possibility to have a good relationship without sex.
A relationship in which the partners are attracted to one another and have regular sex is really important because sex somehow makes all the other things easier to deal with. Sex becomes much more important when it's not.
All right. Well, there you have it. Some people believe that sex is very important. Some people believe that sex is not so important in the relationship. I want to hear from you tonight. I want to hear what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10. All right. That's where we are. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you believe that sex is in the relationship? I don't necessarily want you to talk about your marriage because, we don't want to necessarily, the intention is not for you to be personal. If you do not mind sharing your own personal experience, that's fine. That's fine. But how important do you believe in a scale of 1 to 10 that sex is in the relationship for a healthy marriage? So we've gotten different perspective. We've gotten a male perspective. I have heard as much. I believe Dr. Miles Monroe, one of the men who have mentored me from a distance, talked about the importance of sex in the relationship, and it is elevated to a very high level. That sex is very important, to the point, to the point of it being termed as a need. I know some people say that men need sex. I've never heard it say that women need sex. What do you think? Is it something that women need?
Well, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But it's important.
It's important,
yes.
But I don't think it's a need.
You don't consider it a need like air?
Not necessarily.
Like
no.
food?
No.
Okay.
But it's important.
It's important.
Yeah.
All right. So I would love to hear from you. I would love to get your response. One person says it's important, not that important. But I would love to get your response. Now, it is very clear that the importance of sex varies from individual to individual and from couple to couple. Okay? The importance of sex varies from individual to individual, and it varies from couple to couple. Also, the frequency of sex will vary from couple to couple. But how do you maintain a happy marriage when one of the persons in the relationship is unhappy or dissatisfied with the sexual relationship? How do you maintain a happy relationship when one person is absolutely frustrated, uncomfortable, unhappy, they're just not getting enough of it, and one person is basically saying, well, I don't understand why you are so hard up on sex. I don't understand why you have to be so much, why is sex so important to you? It's like you're an animal or something, right? And I think those are things that happens in a relationship because for a man, and I can say this to you, there's a book that was published some years ago. You and I have a copy of it. It's called His Needs, Her Needs. And that book establishes that sex is on a list of 5 emotional needs for a man.
Yep.
The book establishes that sex is number 1 on the emotional need for a man.
Yeah,
A
you're
man
right.
needs sex. Well, I don't really want to say need, but that the number one of an emotional need for a man. And there the word need comes in
Can't
again.
run away from
Some
the
of you
word,
can't run away
man.
from the word.
The men need sex, okay, ladies?
Yes,
We gotta wake
it's
up, all right?
number 1.
They just
But
need
it's
it.
not the same for a woman. A woman needs affection,
Yeah.
but the man he needs sex. So how do you really manage in a relationship where one person obviously is happy with once a year or on special occasions like Father's Day if you're lucky, and the other person basically obviously wants to have sex with a great degree of frequency, maybe once per day, or maybe 7 times a week.
Same thing.
It's the same thing.
Same thing, baby.
Once a week, once a day, 7 times a week. Well, it's the same thing.
Same
But how do you manage? How do you keep the balance? How do you keep the health in the relationship if that happens? So the first step I would suggest, all right, is to do what? The first step is to do what?
Talk about it with your spouse.
Talk
you
about
know?
it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
partners, so we got to talk about this, man.
Yeah.
This is important, right?
Yeah.
Obviously to you.
Not
so-
fight about it, but
No,
talk about it.
Talk about
Yeah.
it. Absolutely.
So talk about it, which is to confront the fact that, listen, man, we got a problem in this marriage.
Yeah.
Here. Look, I want to
That's
have
what
sex.
they
You don't want to have sex. What's the issue here? I'm not suggesting that is the way it should be approached. I think on the issue of sex, particularly for those of you who are watching in the Christian community, we don't talk enough about sex.
Yeah.
And when we talk about sex, we talk about it sometimes in very nebulous terms. We really don't get down to the real issues that
Yeah.
are impacting on couples in their relationship. Because
That's true.
the issue of sex and the frequency or infrequency of sex is impacting on the health of a lot of marriages. And so there are things that we sometimes are not able to identify because we are not talking about it. Because you cannot address something that you don't confront.
Yeah.
So the first step is to confront it and to talk about it with your spouse. And the second step is to try to discover the reason behind the decrease in the sexual libido. It might be a decrease in the sexual libido, or it may be that the sexual libido does not exist at all, period. All right? And there are all kinds of
medical
things.
help there.
Medical, yeah.
You need medical.
Well, not just medical, but there are lots of things. There are a whole lot of things that impact on why someone may not have that level of interest in sex in the relationship. All right? And one of the things I should say very quickly, brothers, for those of you who are looking, that sometimes it's not that the spouse is not interested in sex. It is sometimes that we are not intentional in the way we approach not just the subject of sex, but the way we approach creating that opportunity for sex to happen in the relationship. You want to speak to that a little from the perspective of a female?
Well, I think for women, we definitely don't want it to be sprung on us. We kind of want to be prepared for it. And, you kind of set the stage. You maybe bring home flowers. You help out in the home. You say some nice words. That helps to create that appetite in the woman for not necessarily sex, but just to connect and to be intimate or to be affectionate.
Right.
It starts there, I think, for us. It starts in our minds, And if our minds are not there, then it's pretty much difficult to get into something physical.
Right.
So I think for men, it's important for them to get into the woman's head, talk to her. I mean, a lot of men, when they were dating their wives or spouses or fiancés, whatever, you know, they talked a lot. They used a lot of swear, as we would say. And for some reason, it seems as though after you get married and you live with your spouse, like,
all of that's
you've
apparent.
lost it.
Yeah.
It should be better, you know, because you have to keep pursuing this woman. I mean, I know you have her now. She's your wife. She's the mother of your kids. But you've now got to win her in a different way.
You have to be intentional.
You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what I'd have to say about, for women.
Yeah.
It's not that most of us, you know, don't like sex, but the atmosphere has to be created.
The atmosphere,
Like,
the atmosphere has to be
The
created.
atmosphere has to be created.
I
And
love it. I love it.
yes. So
Here's what our brother
we'll
says.
be willing participants once
Willing
the
participants.
atmosphere is created. Once
See,
you know
you
you're
hear that,
doing the right
brothers?
things
Yeah.
and saying the right things and setting the atmosphere.
Yeah. So that's what I think. That's what most men would like. Most of us as men, we want our wives to be willing participants in the relationship.
Yes.
You don't want to have a situation where, you know, you are having sex, but she is basically just waiting for the ordeal to be done. All right. So the whole idea is you want your wife, and I think that's what for most men they would like to have, to know that their wives are enjoying it as much as they are, or that they are participating willingly.
Yeah.
So my wife says, if you create the atmosphere, then they will be willing participants. But coming back to the whole issue of how important it is, here's what one brother says. He says, Pastor, sex is like sugar to a man.
Whoa.
Sex is like sugar. Well, I understand what he means, that it is sweet, but sugar is not healthy. Sugar contributes to cancer, okay? But I understand what he is saying. One person says a woman would give sex if she gets love, and a man will give love if he gets sex. Okay. Who will make the first move? No wonder this is a big problem in marriage. So a woman would give sex if she gets love, and a man would give love if he gets sex. Okay, so who makes the first move? That's interesting. Somebody wants to know why the pastor blushing. Well, I'm not sure if I'm blushing. I'm just enjoying the company of my good wife here. All right. So let me get your response. When a woman experiences love, safety, and security, sex comes easy.
Absolutely.
When a woman
I totally
experiences love, safety, and security, sex comes easy. So, like we were saying, I think the second step is to try to discover the reason behind decreased sexual libido.
Yeah.
What is behind this decrease? Why are you so disinterested in sex? And I think that's important. So there are many possible reasons that a marriage becomes sexless. There are many reasons. And the first one I think we want to look at, we may not be able to discover or discuss all of them tonight, but the first one is mismatched sexual libidos or sex drive. There's a mismatch in the sexual drive of the persons involved. So that could be as a result of many things that causes that, you know, mix or mismatch, where the man obviously has a higher sexual libido, the female, depending on maybe several things that's happening at a given time in her life. There could be health issues. There could also be issues of privacy, because, you know, if you are living with in-laws or the children are around, all of those things tend to impact on the frequency of the sex. There's also the issue of relational conflict, where there are negative feelings that exist in the relationship that have been built up over time.
Yeah.
Because if there are negative feelings, negative vibes going, sex is not going to happen naturally. I mean, sex may happen for the man. He's going to basically take what he wants, right? But in terms of, and I want to come in here and say that one of the things we also believe, and we talk about this, is the whole issue of, there's a difference between having sex and making love. You agree with me?
Yes.
You're leaving me out here by myself.
I am listening. I need to
Yeah.
know where you're going. So
Yeah, so there's a difference between
I'm
having
listening, and
sex
then
and making
I'll
love.
chime in.
So for in a healthy relationship, you tend to focus more on making love, which is a whole process of wooing and foreplay and all of that that goes into the experience. Sex basically is just a very physical thing where the need is satisfied, and one is not considering or contemplating how that relationship is contributing to building a stronger, healthy relationship. Because sex is God intended sex to be for three things, not just for physical pleasure, but also by which He is glorified. It is also for the building and strengthening of the emotional bond in the relationship. So when it is just physical and the relationship is tense, for example, there are unresolved issues in the relationship, we still want to have sex. That does not work. All right. So a lot of times what happens is that the infrequency of sex could be as a result of the fact that there are tensions in the relationship that are not being addressed. They're being swept under the rug.
Or unresolved issues.
Unresolved issues in the relationship. And once there are unresolved issues in the relationship and the man is reaching out for sex, how does that make a woman feel when, the man wants to have sex, but he's not addressing the deeper issues that's underlying in the relationship?
I think that affects a woman greatly. She feels used. She feels like, she's just an object of, for his satisfaction, and not necessarily, he's not necessarily interested in how she feels. And I think what confuses women sometimes is that when the relationship started, the man was in touch with her feelings. Like, what do you want? How are you feeling? He was in touch with her feelings, and he understood that to win this woman, he's got to know what it is that she likes, dislikes, what it is she wants, what is it that she desires. And the same thing applies for in the marriage or for the need for sex. You've got to be able to understand where the woman is at. And we understand that it can't be perfect every time. We've got to understand that it can't be perfect every time. All the T's won't be crossed or the I's dotted. But we also want our husbands to understand that, we've got to feel valued as a woman to participate in sex willingly. And we don't want to know that only when you want to have sex, then you play the game of all the swar and the words. We want to know that you value us every day.
Yes.
Whether you're having sex or not. Right? We want to know that we're special to you. We want to know that in your eyes, we're the only woman that exists in your world. And when a woman, like someone said earlier, as you read, when a woman knows that she's loved and she's cared for and she's wanted and desired by her husband, and she's valued, absolutely, she's going to be in. I mean, we talked about the fact that there are other struggles sometimes that, physical and libido and all of that, and those things can be dealt with. But as it relates to just the woman participating and being a part of the whole experience, she needs to feel value. She needs to feel love. She needs to see that you're making an effort in the things that she might have expressed that you need to do better in or whatever. She needs to see that you're making an effort. And that's all she wants. Once she sees that, it's gonna automatically come out. Like, if you give her love, she's gonna give it right back to you. If you give her affection, she's gonna give it right back to you. Whatever you give to her, she's going to give back.
But what about situations? Because we have encountered situations in our work as ministers. We have encountered situations where the man would say, for example, I'm doing my best. I'm working hard. I'm giving. But she continues to deny me. I'm doing my part. But she continues to not be there sexually available. I think that's when one needs to really examine what are some of the deeper underlying issues, because it may be that there are issues that may have impacted on the individual in their earlier childhood experiences and all of those things that may have impacted on the individual and their ability to really relate in a healthy way. So some of those things impact negatively and causes like resentment or they're passive in how they respond to affection.
And just to add something in terms of speaking to the women here, we've got to understand that we can't use sex as a bargaining tool with men, where we withhold ourselves because we want them to do this before. No. You know, the Bible talks clearly about how we should relate with each other in a marriage situation. And we are not to withhold ourselves from each other. We are to agree on how it's going to be done and when. But we shouldn't withhold ourselves from each other and hold men duress, you know, not giving ourselves. We shouldn't. It's not biblical. It's not right.
Yes.
You push your spouse to look outside when you do that, right? The need of the husband is met. The need for sex, that is met in the marriage, in that relationship and in that union. And if you're going to withhold yourself from him deliberately for whatever reason, you are setting him up to fail, and you're setting the relationship up to fail. So it's important for the women to, I understand, you know, it's established that we have a decreased threshold in terms of how important sex is for us, but we have got to make the effort as women, understanding that this is a big need for men. We've got to make the effort as women to ensure that we are also not starving them in that sense.
No sexual starvation.
No, that we're, you know, ensuring that there's a healthy dose.
Healthy dose of sex. But I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I hear you loud and clear. But someone is saying an important thing here. That says the quality of the sex is also important. The quality of the sex. Who wants to have bad sex? The quality of the sex is important.
We're getting deep here now.
Very, very deep. This is, I mean, this can take us for the rest of the year if we stay on this. The quality of the sex. Now, we probably have to, I'm not sure I want to address the issue of the quality of sex because that has all kinds of implications. But I hear the individual. I hear the individual regarding the whole issue of bad sex and all of that. And I assume that bad sex primarily has to do with the whole issue
maybe
of
where just one person is satisfied.
Where one person is being satisfied. Yeah. And also the whole issue of, because I do believe that in the sexual relationship, and someone mentioned it earlier, supporting something that you said, that the preparation for sex does not begin 10 minutes before you get into bed.
Oh no.
It's a continuing process, because here's what I believe. I believe that the key to a man's sexual response is usually his eyes. Men are very stimulated by what they see. That's why the whole issue of, you go to a boys' locker room, for example, there's always nude women, or not always, but men are stimulated by sight.
Typical.
Yeah. Women are stimulated. The key to a woman's sexual response is her brain. It's not so much her sight, it's her brain. It is what she knows. And so if a woman perceives that she's not safe in the relationship, if she perceives that she is not cared for, if her brain is telling her that you're not covering her, if her brain is telling her that you don't have her back, she is not sexually responsive to you. When a woman feels secured in a relationship, when she feels, and security for her is big, it's not just financial security.
Thank you. I wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah.
It's not just financial.
It's not just about the money.
If a woman knows that a man loves her, and she knows that he's working hard to take care of his family, even if he cannot take care of the needs 100%, and she's got to contribute as well and be a part of this partnership and work and contribute, she doesn't mind. What's big for a woman is that she feels love, that she knows that she's loved. That is the security that a woman needs. She needs to know that she is loved no matter what. Stretch marks and all.
Speed bumps,
30 pounds plus after the babies or whatever. She needs to know that you still love her.
Yes.
And, of course, ladies, we can work on ourselves because, we understand that men are visual and we cannot change what has happened to our bodies in terms of during the process of childbearing, but we can work on at least making the best of who we are now. Okay, so we can work on, the little things that we can work on as well, so that the men can still be attracted to us visually, stimulated visually. But yes.
All right.
Once they know that they're loved, once a woman knows that her man loves her, her husband loves her, even if he cannot give her the world, the time. We talked about a few things back a few weeks back about the time,
love
the
language,
quality of the time, and all of that, then it's bingo, baby. She's gonna be going, man. Don't worry.
All right. So the whole issue, you talked about the issue of withholding sex. It's not biblical. It's not right. It's not a Christ-like response to conflict. The issue, I think, sometimes is that people tend to use the weapons at their disposal, and sex should not be a weapon. Absolutely. If you can't get your husband's response or reaction, while you might be tempted to use withholding sex as a means of control and manipulation, it's not the most effective and appropriate way. It's not biblical. It's not right. It's not righteous to do that. And I know you'll be tempted to do that. Men also, it's not appropriate for you to force a sexual relationship with your wife. That's not appropriate. If your wife is not comfortable about that. I was on a radio program on Saturday morning, very early, back in Guyana. Well, the radio station is in Guyana, but I was on the radio program here live from Canada, via the internet. And the question they were discussing is the whole issue of, for example, they were talking about family sex and the church. And they were looking at the issue of oral sex, for example. And is oral sex acceptable in Christendom? And we went through the whole issue. We looked at from a biblical perspective and all of that regarding what the Bible speaks about in the context of the marital relationship. And here is what I said. I said, what's important to know in however we conduct ourselves with respect to our marital relationship, it must never be that whatever acts are undertaken in the context of your bedroom, it must never be that one person seeks to satisfy themselves or their own desire within the context to the pain and discomfort of the other person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So whatever it is you are choosing to do, and we're going back to the issue of the quality of sex and the kind of sex and all of that, this has to be something that both persons have an agreement on, because the sexual relationship must never be for one person's satisfaction and pleasure and the other person's pain and discomfort. So those are important things to consider as well. All right. But we want to also look at the whole issue of some of the things that are contributing to, because before you can really decide about whether you can be happy in a marriage without sex, you really have to get down to the core of why it is you are unable to have the kind of sexual relationship that you want. And we're talking about sometimes there are issues of, for example, boredom in the relationship, tiredness that impacts on the relationship. Sometimes people are just plain tired. And when you are going through that period of maybe tiredness, physical tiredness, stress, childbirth stresses impacts on that. When the baby comes along, when children come along, it impacts on a lot of things with respect to the relationship, availability, and all of that. I've known of situations where husbands feel as though the child has taken their place in the relationship, because since the baby came along, they got put out of the room, they got put out of the bed. Now this little infant is now taking all of the time, and well, that's the adjustment that needs to be made. All right. So again, like my wife said at the beginning, the first step is to really sit down and talk about it. Why aren't we having as much sex as we used to? Is it that you have lost an interest? Or do we need to look at our diet? Do we need to look at what's happening in our health? Maybe there are issues with our health. Maybe the cholesterol level has gone up, and that when your cholesterol level is high, it impacts also on your sexual libido. And several things can do that. All right. There is the whole condition of hyposexual, what they call hyposexual desire disorder, which is low sex drive. And that also is a medical condition that sometimes, if people consider it, it may help them to understand what are the problems that they are dealing with in their relationship. All right. Somebody said husbands also want their wives to be initiators of sex occasionally, and it can become mundane if the husband feel it is their responsibility to pursue sex. Men also want to feel that we are still valid as men if we are pursued sexually by our wives. Yes, so there you go. Some husbands would like their wives to pursue them, not in terms of initiating sex. No, not every husband may want that, but there's some husbands. I believe that that's a conversation that really needs to take place between a man and his wife. Listen, hon, I don't want to be the one chasing you all the time. Sometimes, you can start the ball rolling, do stuff. get me all excited, get me all worked up. You know, do some stuff.
Well,
You know,
we can certainly get dressed for you, you know.
yeah,
Put on those little fine clothes.
the fine clothes.
Yes.
Put on the fine clothes, my wife says. Okay, but listen.
That's our way of initiating, you know. I mean, we get dressed up, right?
Okay.
You're visual, so we get dressed up and with the fine clothes, and you know,
Right.
you're supposed to
Yeah.
respond to our attempts. I mean, I'm not sure how much more, you know, we can talk about on this program tonight in terms of what women should do, but I do agree that there are times, you know, that, and like you said, if the spouse, the husband in the relationship, you know, desires that from his wife or spouse, partner, that the effort is made once it's the desire has been expressed, right?
Yes.
That the effort is made,
Yes.
on the woman's part
To
But,
initiate.
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah, we're not. I don't think the brother is saying that the wife should initiate all the times.
Yeah.
But I think what the brother is saying is that there are times when a man feels good when his wife initiates, and it does not feel as though he is the one that is sex hungry, that he's the one that is chasing after sex. And also that he wants to know that when a woman initiates the sexual act, I think it sends a message to the man that my wife finds me desirable.
Yeah.
My wife finds me desirable. I think also there are some situations, like for example, medication, the side effects of medication. There are some persons who are on medical regime, a medical regimentation for whatever medical condition they have, and some medications can impact on someone's sexual libido.
Yeah.
So that's something you would want to consider as well. If the side effects of certain medication is impacting on the sex drive, then it's not so much. One must not conclude that this is a sexless marriage, but we look at the root cause of it. The side effects of the medication is impacting. For example, depression or other mental health issues can impact on the sexual relationship. Some people may have a history of sexual abuse, pornography, addiction. These things also impact on what happens in the sexual relationship. When people have gone through sexual abuse in their childhood, they have been abused.
Yes.
They come into a relationship and they have been broken and fractured in a way.
Scarred,
And someone said it earlier also that it's important to also know a little about your spouse's background.
Oh, yes. Yes.
All right.
It would help.
Because that will help also to understand why this person may have an aversion to certain things in the sexual relationship.
Yeah.
And those are important things. So before we can really answer the question about whether you can be happy in a sexless marriage, I think we really need to first of all answer those questions as to why.
Yes. Why are things the way
Why are things the way they are in terms of the lack of sex, the infrequency of the sex? Those are the important questions that must be answered first before you can conclude, I'm out of this. There's no sex in this, so I'm gone. And I've heard several people also say that, you know, there are other things. The marriage is not just about sex.
Yes.
So there are other things also that one.
Before you go on, in terms of the women or the wife or initiating sex in the relationship, sometimes I think there are times when our languages are not clear and they're not understood. I think there are times when women do send messages that they want to be affectionate. At least it begins there for us, and then, you know, things can happen. Maybe touching, maybe holding you, rubbing your head. There are little things I think that women do sometimes, and depending on, you know, we talked about some of the things that contributes to the other partner not necessarily being in that place mentally or responding. If they're stressed, you know, so you may not read the signs because you're dealing with other things. So even though she might have touched you and rubbed your head or whatever, or said something nice to you, because of where you are mentally, you have not read that message that she sent there clearly, or vice versa. Sometimes it goes the opposite way, where the husband is sending little messages and maybe things he's saying or whatever, and if she's stressed or, you know, she's got things that she wants done that has not been done, then sometimes that also causes a woman not to respond to those messages as well. So we've got to look at, you know, paying attention to, I mean, marriage is hard work. It's work. And that's why we're talking about being intentional. Marriage is work.
Yeah. We just lost, I think we just lost some sound, but
Maybe
okay, I think we are back. Yeah, I think we are back, but
Oh.
all right, I think this is where we would probably want to maybe wrap this up tonight. We have not quite exhausted the subject of whether you can have a happy sexless marriage. So we may just continue this conversation next week with respect to what are some of the things that one can focus on in bringing out the other aspects
of the marriage,
of health and happiness and wholeness in the marriage when sex may be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay? What are some of the things that maybe can be done to really maintain health and happiness and wholeness in the marriage when sex is an issue? We're going to continue this conversation next week. And so before you go, we just want to speak a word of blessing over you and your family, over your spouse, whatever is happening in your marriage at this time. We just want to believe God that He's going to breathe upon your marriage, and He's going to heal where there are fractures and hurts.
Yes.
All right. And hopefully we continue this conversation. Share this video, my friend. We want to also get your response. Let's know how this conversation has been impacting on you. And share it with a friend, share it with a relative, share it with someone who you think can benefit from it. And we are going to continue this conversation next week on another episode of Intentional Loving. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you tonight for my brothers and sisters and everyone that's viewing this program.
Yes,
I speak a blessing over their relationship, where there are challenges, where there's struggles.
Yes,
God, we are conscious of the fact that in as much as your word declares that two shall become one, we understand the challenges in working out that spiritual truth in our daily living. That while we have the foundation of the word and while we have the commitment, we still have to daily work through the challenges of how the two becomes one. I release a blessing over every family that's struggling with becoming one. And I ask in the name of Jesus that wherever there are fractures and God, issues of dysfunctionalities in the relationship, particularly as it relates to functional or sexual dysfunctions, I release the touch of God, the hand of God to transform that marriage. And I speak healing and wholeness tonight in the name of Jesus. I pray, God, where there is sickness in the body, that healing will come in the name of Jesus. Heal that brother, heal that sister, heal that individual that is struggling in their health, where there is sexual dysfunction. And I thank you for rebuilding and restoring and reconciling that marriage tonight. In the mighty name of Jesus, we thank you for you can do all things in Jesus' name. God bless you, my friend. Looking forward to seeing you again next week on another episode of Intentional Loving. God bless you.